Hello and welcome to the Mount Vernon High School Art Room online. So before we left for spring break, we talked a little bit about contingency plans, and here we are. School is closed down, so if you are watching this video, it means that you have like a go-get-'em attitude. You want to keep making things with clay, and you grabbed a bag of clay during the supply pickup. So the project that we were going to start when we got back from spring break was going to be a gargoyle sculpture. So this is going to be something that's more three-dimensional and more sculptural. Come here. Okay, so this guy is a gargoyle sculpture. There are not a ton of hard, fast rules to making something that is sculptural in ceramics. Of course, we still need to follow the basic construction rules. If you are adding pieces, then you must slip and score thoroughly, because even if it looks stuck, we know that as it dries, these different items that you've added will shrink, and then they will begin to pop off unless you've slipped and scored them. Also, you need to make sure that you hollow this entire thing out, because if there's any area that's thicker than your thumb, which about a ½ inch thick, anything thicker than a ½ an inch is going to explode. If you do carve out something too thin, I don't know if you can see daylight here, but there are a few places where they've carved away too much and they've left little holes. Now, this is fine with this piece because it's very loose. There's a lot of fingerprints still on it. Oh yeah, he's got another gouge right there where this person has carved all the way through. But if you have a very thin spot, just know that it might develop cracks and breaks where you'll be able to see the inside of it. But gargoyles are ancient creatures, and so maybe this is just normal wear and tear aging is what we can go for. If he looks a little rough, it's because he's been around for hundreds of years maybe. Okay, so what is a gargoyle anyway? Let's go get some resources. We usually see gargoyles on the side of cathedrals. Why is that? Gargoyles are actually water spouts. So actually the French word for drain spout is gargouille. So obviously that's the base word for gargoyle. So specifically, gargoyles are going to be shooting out from a building, and water is going to be gargling out of their mouth, like blah, blah, blah. So you might be thinking, like, what about gargoyles that look like this, where they clearly are not a water spout? What is their purpose? We're not actually 100% sure. Monsters have appeared on buildings for centuries. Oftentimes we think that they're there to frighten away evil spirits or to protect the occupants. They're sort of like mythical guard dogs for buildings. But we can't 100% know because the people that made them are very dead. So what do we call a monster on the side of a building that's not a drain spout? In architecture, we call them grotesques, but honestly, most people just refer to all of them as gargoyles because most people don't understand the difference between a water spout, gargoyle, and a grotesque just on the side of the building. So we can totally refer to them all as gargoyles. Like, we don't have to get into semantics. It's pretty much acceptable. Okay, so that's a little bit of background. How do we make a gargoyle? You've got your tube of clay. I do not have my tube of clay. Here, move out of the way, buddy. Okay, perfect. We've got our tube of clay. This is about half. You can use your bathroom scale. I want to say this is like maybe 5 pounds, maybe 4 or 5 pounds. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure we have a nice even block of clay. And then we're going to be thinking about our gargoyle. Now, it's a good idea to look at some pictures of gargoyles. It's a good idea to draw out your design on paper first and do a little bit of planning before you just hit it with the clay. But, you know, maybe I'm gonna just kind of look at the clay and visualize what I want it to look like. So Michelangelo is the famous sculptor that sculpted the David, and there's an old quote that was attributed to him that he looked at the stone and he saw the sculpture, and it was about freeing the sculpture, like not creating the sculpture, but like seeing the sculpture in the stone and then chiseling away the excess stone. I don't know if he really said that, and honestly, I don't think that's the way it actually works. Like, planning is going to be better. Oh, my phone's ringing. So once you have your design figured out, you're going to use 2 methods to create this sculpture. The first is going to be reductive sculpture, where we take clay away. And then you'll also use additive clay sculpture, where you'll be adding pieces. And you sort of move back and forth in between those 2 methods until you have the sculpture that you want. So if I was to make this guy, I would want to portion off some of his head and his body. Now, you're thinking, oh, I should make 2 balls of clay and I can slip and score them together. But that's just creating a needless joint that you're not necessarily going to need. So instead, what I can do is orient some clay here in the front of my sculpture, like this. So now we're starting to have a head and a neck and a body without that joint, because the fewer joints you have, the more structurally sound this is going to be. Think of every time you add clay to the sculpture, you're going to be creating a possible crack or fault line. Like, you can slip and score it really, really well and it will probably stay put. But the less pieces you add on at the beginning, the better. Oh, he's got a very fat body. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna switch down so that we have a camera that's a little bit closer to my hands so you can really see what the heck I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to relegate myself to only using a fork, since you don't have access to any of the tools here in the studio. So if you're not able to use the tools in the studio, then I shouldn't be able to use them either. So let's see what we can do with this fork. Okay, so already this is sort of starting to take shape. We've got a head, a big fat neck, and a chubby body here. And I know I said that I think it's cheesy to think that the sculpture is inside the clay and we're like freeing the sculpture. However, I've gotten to this point and he kind of looks like a frog to me. So I think that we're going to make a terrifying grotesque, and it's going to sort of be based on a frog design. So I may take this opportunity to go look at some pictures of some frogs, but just based on memory, I think that they sort of have, you know, this collapsed ridge in the top of their head, and I know his mouth is going to be very big, and we're going to exaggerate his features too, because I think that's part of the grotesque, is that they are monstrous creatures, right? So we're going to create really big, terrifying features. So maybe I'll give him some big horns or something. Definitely I'm going to give him some big eyeballs in this area here. But yeah, he's already starting to take shape. I'm going to keep his limbs pretty close to his body, because like I said, anything hanging out into space is going to be at greater risk for breaking off. But also, yeah, if you want to add pieces on, that's fine too. You're just going to have to be really aggressive in your slipping and scoring. But also, like, I think these would be really great to go outside in like a garden. So if I avoid little tiny pieces coming off, then I'll just make him more durable if he's going to be living outside. Now, that being said, if you would like to make big, tangly, spooky wings that are just absolutely delicate, you can totally do that. Just know that this you're gonna have a lot of risks for that cracking. Yeah, so we got this frog guy. You know, he's just kind of looking like a normal frog. He's not really looking that grotesque at this time. Oh, we'll fold his little hands in front of him too. That'd be pretty cute. So yeah, we just have sort of a little garden sculpture at this point. He's not that grotesque. Okay, so let's say I have him all finished. Imagine he's got all these really cool details on him. Maybe he has some spikes happening. But I don't want to bore you and go through all of that. So what do we do? Like, he's just a bomb, right? He's gonna blow up. So what I can do is I can dig him out from the bottom, but you'll find without a ribbon cutting tool, that's pretty tricky, but you're just gonna take big scoops of clay out of the bottom. And you just dig, 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 dig. Now you can take out a big chunk of clay while he's still soft, but just be aware that when he's very plastic and you're handling him, you may smash his little face. So dig out some of the inside while he's soft, but then I would wait until he's a little bit closer to leather hard before you really start digging out. Otherwise, he's going to collapse because he's pretty heavy. And if he doesn't have that chunky inside to support him, then he could just start to smash. So just the same way that we let our boxes get leather hard before we carved on them and constructed them, in the same way we should probably let the shell outside get a little hard. If we let it get too dry though, then we're not going to be able to dig it out because it'll just be too hard and it'll just crack instead of coming out. So it's kind of this delicate balance if you want the outside to be a little bit firm so you can dig the inside. But like I said, you could probably dig out a good chunk of inside before you let him firm up. Okay. So what happens, like mine has a really big wide base here, so it's really easy to get inside to hollow him out. I could probably hollow him out all the way to the tippy top of his head, no problem. But what if you have something more like this, where his butt, like you're not gonna be able to access his head from that area. So what do? So that means you're gonna have to do a little bit of surgery. I'm gonna bring in another tool for this, but it's gonna be a tool that you probably have in your house. Okay, so we're gonna break out a carving knife for this part. Now, if you're gonna be doing this, you already dug out as much as you physically could from the bottom. This is just to get at the pieces that you really can't access. You do wanna wait until this is quite firm. If you wait until it's bone dry though, you're not gonna be able to get inside of it without cracking it, so that's too far. But you do wanna get it about leather hard for dryness. And then what we're gonna do, here, you can see his little face. Oh no, ah! Okay, so this is smashing him, right? But that's because it's too soft. If I was doing this when it was leather hard, he would not be getting so smashed. But this is just for the sake of demonstration, so he's probably not coming back from this. Okay, so now we can open him up. Ugh. And now we can see inside of him. And that way I can access everything and get them all hollowed out. And then what I would do is I would slip and score these edges. Because it's leather hard, we should be able to put him carefully. We should be able to put him back together, just like we did with our box when we were assembling the sides. And we should be able to sew him all the way back together, boop, 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 and there would be no sign of that crack. Ah! But it's really important that you do whatever you gotta do, even if it's really this crazy. Like, you've gotta do it because you've got to get inside and dig out all of those thick spaces. Because like I said, if you leave a part like up here where it's too thick, then that is just gonna blow up in the kiln anyway. Okay, so I can't wait to see what some of you guys come up with. I want you to have a lot of fun with this. Make sure as you're working, you really need to keep your clay wrapped up. So what I don't want to see is bags of clay. They're just sitting open on the table as you're working, because you might get really engrossed in this, and that bag of clay might stay open for 20 minutes, 2 hours, and then you're drying out your clay. And you can't just give your dry clay to me and have me pug it up and bring it back to you. Like, nope, you are gonna have to re-wet it by yourself, and it's no fun at all. So just keep your clay wrapped up. If you have little pieces like this that come off and it's starting to get dry, just dip that in some water and put it back in the bag, and it will rehydrate. If you let the clay get too dry, that's gonna be kind of a pain to rehydrate. All right, well, yeah, I hope that you have fun making sculptures with your time at home. I just want to reiterate that this is not new content for ceramics. This is just an opportunity for those of you that have the skills, because you've been in ceramics, like you already have these skills, that you can make some projects on your own. So when you bring these projects back, these projects will absolutely not be graded. They will not go towards the curriculum. Like, the class is on hold. So if you crash and burn with this project, that's totally fine. Like, don't be stressed. If you don't make a gargoyle, if you make something completely different, I don't know if I made a gargoyle, I made a garden frog. So yeah, if you end up making something completely different with your clay and you bring that to me, I will happily fire it. So this is just me hopefully providing some work time for you while you are away from school. But like I said, this is not new content, this is not new curriculum. This is just for you to stay engaged with art making. Because I know that some of you are probably missing ceramics class. I am really, really missing ceramics class. All right, so happy making, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Bye-bye.